Thank you, Mike. Thank you for your introduction and for the opportunity to present Scope Ship Review on the Marine Money, Ship Finance and Decarbonization Conference. Before I begin, let me start with a few words about Scope. Scope is a registered credit rating agency in Europe. It is supervised by ESMA, the European Securities and Market Authority. Has 240 employees and offices across Europe. Our main office is in Berlin. We serve currently about 350 investors, mostly large investors across Europe and in the United States, with our services, which are basically credit ratings and research, ESG analysis and research, and also fund analysis. Today we are the largest European rating agency, and we are trying to challenge S&P and Moody's and Fitch as the European challenger. Before I want to go into more depth, I want to elaborate a little bit on the challenge of the industry. So consumers and politicians basically demand that products are CO2 neutral. In the Paris Climate Agreement, 196 countries signed this agreement and are working now to achieve a climate neutral world by 2050. And also the EU targets a net zero greenhouse gas emission economy by 2050. For the shipping industry, this means as 90% of the world's trade is carried by sea, and the industry produces about 3% of global emissions, that if unregulated, shipping emissions are projected to reach about 17% of global CO2 by 2050. And the market reacts on that. The International Maritime Organization sets out targets to reduce carbon emission by 50% in 2050 compared to 2008. Banks joined the Poseidon Principles to support carbon emissions and support basically the emission goals through ship financing. And the EU Parliament actually wants shipping to participate in the carbon trading. So there are a lot of stakeholders in the industry, in the shipping industry, that need a common measurable view on progress of their actions and on improving sustainable and reliable logistics. The solution for that could be what we are offering, the industry solution to evaluate sustainable and reliable sea logistics that we call Ship Review. It has four main components. The first component being the environmental review, where we measure airborne emissions, sea emissions, emissions through garbage disposal, and emissions impact to people on board and ashore. The second component being the sustainability review, where we measure the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and apply them to every single ship. The third one being the reliability review, where we measure safety, so the technical and crew-related deficiencies, detentions, and therefore the availability of a vessel. And in the future, we will be coming up with a fourth component, which is the condition review, where we measure the condition, so to say, the maintenance status, technical components, quality standards, refurbishments, etc., of the ship. Why do we do this? Why Scope? Scope already evaluates the ESG impact of 17,000 corporates. And our approach of evaluating corporates is not looking at the corporate company alone, but also at the supply chain, because we noticed through our research that the supply chain accounts for almost 50% of the ESG impact of a corporate company. So if you look at the food sector, the corporate itself only counts for about 12% of the ESG impact, while the supply chain accounts for 88%. And as the supply chain, or as the shipping industry is a major part of the supply chain, we thought that Scope is very well positioned to offer maritime logistics as part of the evaluation, as part of the supply chain. The second part is why Scope. Scope is already registered with ESMA as a European credit rating agency, and ESMA announced on January 29th in a call for legislative action that they are looking into regulating ESG ratings and also ESG assessment tools. Being a regulated rating agency and already offering ESG ratings today, Scope is well positioned to also offer these probably soon regulated assessment tools, because the regulator is afraid that at some point the risk will increase of greenwashing, capital misallocation, and product mis-selling, and they want to prevent that. So when we look at the database that we have built up, we are looking at about 70,000 ships, of which about 15,000 are oil and gas tankers. We have about 5,300 container ships, 3,800 passenger, 12,500 bulk carrier, general cargo 11,000, and 22,000 other ships. Before I elaborate more on the benefits and everything, I would like to actually go into the platform now and show you a little bit around. So I have to switch my screen and go into the platform, which is the Scope 1 Sustainable and Financial Intelligence platform. We are in the sustainability part now, and we are looking at ship review. Basically, what Ship Review offers is, here again, the coverage, some research, your personal advisor. You can create your own portfolios, and you can search for ships. And I'm going to type in sample, not a sample ship, it's an actual ship. So you can type in basically any ship, and it will come up. And you will see as your first screen an overview of the ship. So we'll see basic data. It's like the IMO number, what kind of vessel it is, an LNG tanker in this case. The flag is Marshall Islands, and the ship manager is Flex LNG Fleet Management AS. What you also see is the 3 scores. The environmental score, it's 7 out of 10, sustainability 5 out of 10, and reliability 8.5 out of 10, 10 being good, which you can see down here in the scale. Now, what's really, really important is that a score of 7 out of 10 in environmental is already darn good. We are starting this journey in the shipping industry, and most of the ships are per se not that environmentally friendly. We are on a path over the next 30 years to become a zero greenhouse gas emission economy, but we're not there yet. A sailboat probably would get a 10 out of 10, but as long as we have fuel burning engines, it's hard to get the 10. Also on the sustainability part, this is only a 5 out of 10. However, the ship industry has, first of all, never coped with sustainability components out of the 17 sustainability goals applied to a single ship. And also the whole model on sustainability is really a model-based approach. And it also, if applied, can be improved quite fast by the ship manager. The reliability has been in the industry for a while. There's lots of data available. So in this case, the reliability of 8.5 out of 10 is quite good. There's hardly any ship that gets 10. There are a few that have a 9.5, so reliability of 8.5 is quite good. What you also see is a map of the ship, some ship data built in 2020. That is, oh yeah, it's a very new ship, sorry. Length of the ship, distance sailed, where the ship is located right now, and of course you see the scale. And here is a link to the methodology paper. If you look at the environmental score, you can see all the components that add up to the environmental score. So there's the CO2 efficiency, which is, and we have a little hover over explanations, It's the CO2 emissions per ton carried and nautical miles sailed. And we basically get this information from the EU emissions database, MRV. We have also the total amount of emissions per year. We will eliminate this score because it favors small ships to large ones, and it doesn't compare very well with regards to efficiency. And also we will eliminate shaft generator in our latest scorecard because it only adds 1% of the value, and the information is basically already incorporated the CO2 efficiency. But then we have the exhaust gas cleaning system, which is also known as a scrubber. So ships with a scrubber are actually not valued very well if they are open loop scrubbers. If they are closed loop scrubbers, it's a favorable factor. If they are open or hybrid scrubbers, it's not favorable because if a ship without scrubber has to use less of a fuel, and that is less harmful for the environment. Then there's ballast water treatment systems that we are looking at. We are looking at the detentions that are environmental related, the pollution that related incidents, pollution related deficiencies. According to the MARPOL categories, we are looking at the hazardous material inventory on board, whether a ship has noise cancellation systems, whether it uses economic or eco-friendly chemicals when repainted, for instance, or how the ship owner is doing, or the ship is doing, the garbage handling. That is the environmental score. I want to go into the reliability score briefly. You see the ship, quite new, is extremely reliable. There's one factor here, standard of equipment. According to the Marine Equipment Directive, this only has a lower score because it's not, I think the ship is not registered in Europe where this directive applies, but the ship manager has the opportunity to show us that the ship actually complies with this directive, and then the score will be adjusted as well. And the other scores are age. Usually an older ship is less reliable than a new ship, the number of detentions, number of incidents, the flag detention ratio, flag change. Flag changes often occur because the ship manager wants to move to a lower flag with lower requirements to save cost. Class society detention ratio, class changes, frequency of dry docking is an important component. But we also consider whether a ship has been like partially dry docked and like water dry docked. That's all part of the system. Then port state control deficiencies. We are looking at the top deficiencies of the port state control, also crew-related technical deficiencies, and the ship manager's detention ratio, because there's a correlation between the ship manager's detention ratio and the ship's detention ratios of that manager, and other ratio, deficiency and casualty ratio. So that's an overview of the reliability. And then another feature is Myfleet. So basically you can search for any ship, you can add it to the fleet. In the future, we will be creating dedicated dashboards for port authorities that have certain needs. We will create dashboards for banks that want to see how different calculations of CO2, like the calculation they need to use for the Poseidon principles, are created, and we will show these CO2 measures in the bank dashboard. We will create dashboards for shippers and logistic companies so that they can basically see how much emission is used in the journey from port A to port B, and especially components for the ship owners and ship managers, so that it's becoming very, very transparent, not only what the status of the ships are, but also how they improve over time, because we believe that this is nothing that can be done within a few weeks or a few months or even in a few years. It will take 20, maybe even 30 years until 2050, until the shipping industry is able to convert to a true climate-friendly industry and be on the forefront of logistics and transportation. So this is my presentation. If you have questions, let me know. We have a flyer that you can download with my contact details. And I would like to get back to Mike now and wish everyone online to enjoy and have a very interesting conference. And hopefully in a year from now, the pandemic is over and we see each other in person. Thank you very much.